Hello, I'm Sarah. I work for Cochrane, writing about health evidence, but here I'm speaking as a patient about my experience of making a decision about having a treatment that could be life-changing. I have had progressive hearing loss since early adulthood, and in my mid-50s had got to the point where I had the strongest hearing aids available, but was struggling to hear. Engaging in conversation was increasingly difficult, and it was making me sad, frustrated, and worried about a future in which I would become more and more isolated. In the pandemic winter of 2020, with masks making communication even more difficult, an appointment with my ear, nose, and throat doctor for an ear infection was to be life-changing. He sent me for an audiogram, looked at the results, and said I might now be eligible for a cochlear implant. This is a complex device that is partly implanted into the cochlea of the ear and under the scalp, and partly worn externally, and it stimulates the hearing nerve directly. At this point, I knew little about them and had no idea they were offered to people like me. I left that appointment feeling astonished and with a seed of hope. 4 months later, after a battery of tests from a multidisciplinary team, I was told I could be put on the waiting list for an implant. I had mostly avoided finding out anything about them in case I was told I wasn't eligible. But now, with my name on the list and that seed of hope growing, it was time for some serious decision-making. As a former nurse with a long career in health research, I knew the drill. Good health decisions should take into account the evidence, clinical expertise, and the patient's preferences and values. But my initial reaction was, "Oh, wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Yes, please, when can I have it?" My feelings of hope that here was an intervention that could, might, will change my life for the better, shoved aside my rational self. The first things I wanted to find out were other people's experiences of having an implant. Yep, anecdote, right at the bottom of the evidence hierarchy. I wouldn't make a treatment decision based on so-and-so's auntie having found it really helped her, but I still wanted to hear about it. And as I forced myself to start working logically through all the considerations, I learned that health decisions don't fit a neat diagram, that we are messy creatures full of messy emotions, living complex lives, and it's in that space that we make our health decisions. The decision facing me was not between multiple treatment options, but rather to carry on as I was or to have a cochlear implant. It was important to understand that I couldn't try it and see. Once I had an implant, I couldn't go back to using a hearing aid in that ear. The hearing mechanism for that would no longer be there. An appointment with one of the implant surgeons was an important part of the decision-making process. We talked about the evidence. He told me that there is evidence that people like me, in terms of my hearing loss and how that affected me, are likely to benefit from an implant, though how much hearing someone will gain is uncertain, and experiences of hearing with a cochlear implant will vary between people. I later looked at the guidance from the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, or NICE, which provides guidance and advice to improve health and social care in the UK. The evidence on which they have based their recommendations relates to implants from 3 companies, and my NHS Trust offers a choice between 2 of these. NICE concludes that for adults who meet the criteria, which involves a multidisciplinary assessment, cochlear implants have been shown to be clinically effective. A really helpful way of approaching a health decision is to think brain. What are the benefits, risks, alternatives, individual factors? What do I want? What's important to me? And what if I do nothing? So, the benefits. Evidence tells me that I'm likely to gain from an implant. I asked my surgeon what was the best outcome he could imagine for me, and he said he thought that I would be able to hear on the phone. But from this, I also anticipated gains that were more meaningful to me: social, emotional, and physical gains, such as engaging in conversation more easily and avoiding what I greatly feared, a future of increasing isolation and dependence and increased risk of cognitive decline. An implant would also future-proof my hearing, not just halting the decline, but also enabling me to benefit from future developments in implant technology. Having implant surgery comes with some risks, and the thing that worried me most was the risk of tinnitus and balance problems. There are other risks too, both at the time of surgery and later, including device failure and the need for more surgery. There was only a very small chance of having any complications, and for me as a healthy person, that was also true of the risks associated with the general anaesthetic. But on the day of my operation, as I walked theatre, I suddenly felt quite frightened that I was doing something that could harm me by choosing to have non-essential surgery. If anything went badly wrong, this would affect my family, not just me. A reminder that our health decisions affect others as well as ourselves. The alternative to having surgery was to carry on with my hearing aids and gadgets designed to work with them. But I was already struggling badly, and when I asked my surgeon what was likely to happen to my hearing if I didn't have the implant, he said he would expect it to keep deteriorating. It was good to know that if I decided I didn't want to go ahead with an implant at that point, this decision could be revisited annually. What was important to me, my individual preferences and circumstances, were central to this decision. And this is such an important element of health decision-making for everyone. Some people have said I was brave to go for the implant, but in many ways it felt like a simple decision. Without it, I would become deafer. My world would keep shrinking, and so might my brain. These fears were important in my decision-making. The implant offered a chance of better hearing, better quality of life in the here and now, and a brighter future. My tendency to be optimistic played its part too. I felt hopeful I'd get good outcomes and that it would be all right. There were practical considerations too. I felt very fortunate in my personal circumstances and that these would really help my recovery and rehabilitation, which includes a period in which I would have less hearing than before and doing auditory training exercises over many months. I have a supportive family, understanding colleagues and a flexible job, a job which doesn't require me to talk to people much of the time. And I have the skills and resources to use the technology which helps so much with learning to hear with an implant and with managing it. I accepted the risks, the uncertainties, the inconveniences, and the work that would follow the surgery, because evidence and expertise gave me good reason to believe an implant would bring benefits. And those benefits mattered so much to me. It's now almost a year since my implant, and after months of hard work and adjustment, I find myself in an astonishingly good place, hearing better than I dared hope, having far more energy than before, and with multiple benefits for my quality of life. Quite simply, I feel like myself again. Making a health decision by considering the best available evidence, drawing on your clinician's expertise, and keeping what matters most to you at the centre of your thinking and discussions as you weigh up the benefits, risks, alternatives, and doing nothing if that's an option, is a really good way to find your way forward and make the best choice for you. I encourage you to try it when you're making a health decision.